Hi, my name is Giselle Cisneros, and I'm going to be doing my presentation on mariachi in the Mexican culture. The reason that I decided to do this presentation is because I am Mexican myself, and I have never felt close to the mariachi culture, and I believe that mariachi is one of the most important factors in the Mexican culture, and it happens to be one of the most important factors in the traditions that Mexicans partake. So I thought that researching this topic would maybe help me understand and become more knowledgeable about the topic. So, starting off with the origins, mariachi originated from Jalisco, Mexico in the 18th century. The man who arrived in what is now Mexico is Hernan Cortez in 1519. The instruments that were used at the time were the harp and the vihuela, and these two instruments evolved over the period of time through mariachi groups. The Native Americans at the time began to become accustomed to European musical practices, even though they had their own highly developed musical traditions. Another ethnic group that came into the Mexican music was the black music, which was brought by African American slaves during the colonial period. So overall, mestizo traditional folk music was brought from cultural and musical blending of indigenous and foreign objects, such as the ones named above, Native Americans, Europeans, and African Americans. So a little history about mariachi. Although most of the mariachi history has been undocumented, the earliest reference to mariachi has been found in a letter written by a priest named Cosme Santa Ana. The letter had actually names of mariachi people, and the mariachi who were documented were found in the center of Alonso, Western Mexico. They were associated with the rural fiesta or fandango and tarima or wooden platforms. This was where couples would dance sones and jarabes, and sones and jarabes actually happened to be the two most important genres in early mariachi. So attires that they would wear at the time were peasant garbs, and they didn't really care what they dressed like or what they looked like. But after the 1910 revolution, they began wearing uniforms. So the traje de charro, which is the uniform that was actually once worn by wealthy people, and it was their attire, became the mariachi attire. A closer look into mariachi culture. Mariachi portrays its authenticity through their sweats, tears, and their facial expressions. It is a way for them to express emotions, and el grito, which means the shout, actually happens to be one of the most common ways that mariachi bands express their emotions. And I think this riles up a lot of the crowds, and people get really involved when they do that loud shout. Mariachi musicians have been the symbol of Mexican culture with the use of sombreros, studded cowboy outfits, and drinking tequila during their performances. I see tequila drinking a lot in Luis Miguel's mariachi performances, and it seems like he really gets into that. The mariachi image. Mostly it's comprised of men, but it's actually common to see a lot of women in mariachi bands nowadays. There's a lot of excessive drinking and emotionality, tears, interchangeable with stereotype of macho, which I think that has lowered nowadays a lot, and it's not very much seen like that anymore, unless in America. Um, it's common to find mariachi groups in restaurants or strolling around streets with unique looking hats. Like if you go to a restaurant, I know that when my family goes to restaurants, we see, or specifically Mexican restaurants, we see a lot of mariachi bands, and my family will call them over to sing a special song or just to have a good time. It's a way for all of our family to bond together, or especially the adults, just because I'm not really into this type of music. Okay, so now the instrumentation. Before the Mexican Revolution. So before the Mexican Revolution, The band consisted of 5 members. It was actually split into 2 regions, which is Central Jalisco and Michoacan. And Michoacan is actually where all of my family is from both sides of my mom and my dad. Central Jalisco focused on the use of the violin, the guitarrón, and the Michoacan focused on the use of violins, harp, and the guitarrón de golpe, which is the original mariachi guitar. After the Mexican Revolution, the band members went from 5 to 20. So the bands grew a lot, and the regions combined, um, and instruments doubled in size. The guitarra de golpe and the harp were no longer used. Modern day mariachi instruments consist of 2 trumpets, 3 or more violins, a vihuela, and a guitar and guitarrón. I'm gonna show you a video of the type of mariachi that or mariachi performances that I somewhat actually enjoy, and my family enjoys this type of mariachi as well.
Altanera, preciosa y orgullosa, no permiten la quieran consolar. Pasa luciendo su real majestad, pasa camina los vidas sin verlos jamás. La divina tiene pena y dolor. La
So that was just a small portion of what mariachi looks like, and I decided to use this one because my family actually really likes Luis Miguel, and also I think he's known for having one of the best mariachi bands and best performances. He also usually has tequila in his hand and he drinks while he's performing, which is very common. So mariachi traditions. So mariachi performances include music being played to accompany dancing, such as a waltz, polka, or folk Mexican dances. The waltz and the polka are actually what we've learned in class. The gritos are traditionally yelled out during mariachi songs to emphasize certain meanings, like I said before. And the attire now, modern days, and has been like this for a while, are worn in part of the Mexican culture. It is again known as a charro, which is a very professional and considered very upper class. I think the sombrero is really what makes the entire attire and makes it so unique, makes it so Mexican cultured. I feel like when someone sees a sombrero, they automatically think that's the Mexican culture, which is what differentiates mariachi in the Mexican culture from a lot of Latin American cultures and music genres. Um, Two things that are very known in the traditional mariachi is serenata. It's a very popular form to show love to your significant others. I feel like back then that was seen a lot, or maybe in Mexico it's seen a lot, not so much in America. But it is a very cute romantic way to show love to another person. And the next one is las mañanitas, which is a traditional way to be woken up in the early mornings for your birthdays or saint days, or they people people or Mexican people, because most Mexicans I think are Catholics. They put las mañanitas for la Virgen de Guadalupe, which is done through the days of December 11th and the 12th. Mariachi in the United States. Mariachi has been a very well established in the U.S. In 1961, Nati Cano organized the best known mariachi band named Los Camperos. They were successful in popularizing this music among non-Hispanics, and by 1970s, mariachi took off and became popular in schools, festivities, and conferences. They actually became very popular on TVs, and I think it's what really helped a lot of Americans be familiar with mariachi when they began to see it on TV and began to be a way of like propaganda and stuff like that. In schools, violinist Jesus Sanchez taught at mariachi music in UCLA. Due to these educational purposes, people of all ethnicities became very familiar with this genre, especially younger people. Another thing that helped was the International Mariachi Conference, which was taking place in Texas on 1979. It held a lot of famous artists and had a lot of powerful impact on students and musicians. And that will conclude the mariachi presentation. And these are my references.